This video highlights misconceptions about seeking fatwa. It depicts how Yasir seeks fatwa from Yusri, trying to offload on Yusri his personal responsibility in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum. A moment, please. Yasir has found himself in a situation that requires religious guidance and input. Unfortunately, he is seeking for guidance according to his desire, not necessarily in accordance to what Islam says or what a genuine fatwa may provide. He approaches Yusri for fatwa. Yasir has the misconception that once Yusri gives him the fatwa he needs, Yasir, no longer becomes responsible, and therefore Yusri will bear it on his behalf when they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order to achieve that, as you have rightly guessed, Yasir gives an incomplete story. He describes a half-baked situation. All that so to get a religious excuse and religious basis for whatever the project he has at hand. Based on the narration and input of Yasir, Yusri goes on to issue a fatwa for him. It is needless to emphasize that Yusri trusted the input given to him by Yasir, and he gave a genuine fatwa on that basis. Now, what is the possible implication of this? But before we look at such implications, here is a little disclaimer. Yasir and Yusri are fictional figures which I have been using lately to simplify examples in my sharings across all platforms. I may use them, Yasir and Yusri, in a Quran lesson, in a clip on Al-Bushra by G-Salam, or in an article on gsalam.net. In fact, I may use them in my random reflections on other social media handles. So, whenever and wherever you happen to see them, kindly refrain from thinking of any other Yasir or Yusri in particular. It is important for many of us to know or remember that fatwa is not a permanent ruling. Fatwa only provides temporal solutions. Fatwa doesn't change an established legislation in Islam. For instance, an established halal shall remain halal, and on the other hand, an established haram shall remain as such. What is permissible, and what is impermissible is impermissible. However, depending on an exceptional and desperate situation in which Yasir may find himself in, Yusri, who becomes the mufti in this situation, may give him fatwa that allows him to make use of something that is by right impermissible, say riba for instance. But that must be within a very limited and a very strict situation of Yasir. Mind you, all underlying factors must be taken into consideration. That is before Yusri is able to issue a valid fatwa. Furthermore, the fatwa given to Yasir in this situation doesn't automatically apply to any Amr, Ahmad or Ibrahim outside there, simply because although the scenarios may sound and look the same with another person's situation, but underlying factors that led to the situation may differ and hence make the situation not matching with the same fatwa. Again, fatwa is not a permanent ruling. It only provides a temporal situation. It doesn't change a divinely established legislation in Islam. When seeking fatwa, the fatwa seeker, Yasir, in this situation, must give full account and be ready to answer or provide information regarding all possible underlying factors. It is important to remember that a mufti in this situation, Yusri, doesn't know the unseen. Therefore, he can be cheated or misled. No matter how knowledgeable or experienced he may be, a mufti will only output fatwa based on the narration you input for him. The thing is, we can cheat the mufti and lead him to tell us what we want to hear. But we cannot cheat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For in the end, He knows what resides in our hearts. Once we have created this common ground, we can now think of possible ideal approach for seeking fatwa. The ideal situation for seeking fatwa, which is suggested in this section of the video, is applicable only at personal and individual level. Institutions as well as organizations will have different approach. That is, seek fatwa from a scholar with whom you can communicate and give a complete image of the situation. That is, if you want a genuine guidance based on authentic Islamic knowledge. In other words, it is not enough to just throw a vague question without context and expecting Yusri, the Mufti in this situation, to have the magic to issue a one-fits-all answer or fatwa. The more Yusri, the Mufti in this situation, the more Yusri knows about the context of your situation, if you happen to be Yasir, the more reliable fatwa he can provide you. In other words, there is no need for you to seek fatwa from scholars overseas when your neighborhood or your country is full of scholars and seekers of knowledge. These are the ones who understand, those in your neighborhood as well as in your country. They are the ones who understand the context better and will be able to figure out possible loopholes and tricks. The Mufti, who in this case is Yusri, takes no liability for the fatwa he issues if he was genuine in his fatwa and has based his fatwa on the inputs he received from the fatwa seeker. The fatwa seeker in this situation is Yasir. The Mufti only commits sin in the sight of Allah if he issued the fatwa in the way that only pleases Yasir, not necessarily in the way in which he was mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment. So when one of us consults our local imam, our religious teacher, or a mufti, he is ought to take note of the following. The mufti's response, his answer, his inputs, his fatwa, his suggestions, his recommendations, and whatnot will only base on what you tell him. He doesn't know what has happened until you inform him. So be detailed. Giving half-baked information will only earn you half-baked fatwa. It will only earn you half-baked answer. It will only earn you half-baked suggestions and probably fruitless guidance. Getting the mufti to halalize, to make halal something that is an established haram will only put you in a difficult position upon meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day when neither money, nor children, nor possessions will benefit anyone. The only thing that will benefit anyone is coming to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with sound hearts. Unless you have paid Yusri or the Mufti in this situation to tell you only what you want to hear, only what pleases you, then he is not responsible for your trying to cheat on yourself or trying to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. They are tricking Allah and the believers, but they are tricking and cheating or misleading no one other than themselves, only that they fail to realize it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the guidance and courage needed to refine our dunya for the best interest of our akhirah. If you have watched this video to this point, then consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Like and comment, as this will help the video to reach more audience out there. If you take the trouble to share it with your loved ones, it will be greatly appreciated and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you. Until we meet in our next moment, please, I leave you in Allah's protection. Wassalamu alaikum